Welcome back, everybody, to the Florida Band Podcast. My name is Andrew Lopez, band director at Coniston Middle School in West Palm Beach.
You almost forgot.
What happened? I almost forgot.
I'm Christian Gordon, band director at Westglades Middle School in Parkland, Florida.
And I'm AJ Arcia, band director at Coral Springs Middle School in Coral Springs, Florida.
And we have a guest today. He's won 5 of the last 6 of his fantasy football league. Oh, 5 of the last 7. Oh, dang. 5 of the last 7 of his fantasy football league titles. He's the current champion. Is that right?
Back to back, baby.
And he's also the newly dubbed Lord Mayor of Boca, the band director at West Boca Community High School, Larry Shane. What's up, dude?
Hello, everybody. How you guys doing?
We're good, man.
Hi, Larry.
Hi, Larry.
Hi. Hello.
So we've been trying to get Larry on for a while, and he's been trying to get on to do 2 things. One, if we have time, we're gonna try to record 2 episodes. But the first episode is, and Kaylin's gonna have to bleep this out, but it's quote tips from an old, as he does.
Yes.
For young directors. And then the second one, if we have time, we're just gonna talk a lot of smack about Evan Rogovan, the band director at Dreyfus, for like a really.
And by we really just mean you.
I would never say anything ill or negative against my good friend Evan Rogovan. He's just the greatest. The end.
Episode's over. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye, everybody. No, Larry, thanks for being here. Like we're doing this initiative where we're trying to get more guests on the podcast just to try to, 1, draw in more viewers, 2, get a little bit more content, and 3, because Christian and AJ are really sick of hearing my voice, and I get that. So just trying to get some more content in. Before we kind of dive in, do you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about, your program, your background in terms of where you come from, and just
Sure.
kind of your own little history?
All right. Sure. It was a dark Wednesday morning. No, I'm sorry. So I've been teaching high school band for 32 years because I'm really old. This is my 11th year at West Boca High School in Palm Beach. Before that, I was in Charlotte for 7 years. Before that, I was also in Palm Beach. I actually opened Park Vista High School, was there for a little over a year. My wife got transferred to Charlotte, her job, so that's why we moved. I was at John L. Leonard before that. Before that, I was in Miami. And before that, I was in Key Largo. And my first job, I was the assistant band director at Taravella High School in Coral Springs for 1 year. Right around from where you guys are.
Right.
That was
Assistant to who?
Neil Jenkins.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Whoa.
Way back in the day.
And you were his student, right?
Well, at a different school, yeah. I went to Miramar High School when he was band director there, and he was my band director, and then taught with him for 1 year right out of college at Taravella.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That was it. That's another podcast, Neil's Stories. That's another podcast.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
I could fill a lot of time.
would.
But it's okay. I have a lot of experience teaching high school, obviously. I also have been involved with drum corps since I was 15. I've taught Carolina Crown since 2006. So what's that? 17 years? It depends how you count the COVID year. 16 or 17. Before
Sure.
that, I taught Blue Knights in the 90s. I marched in Florida Wave and in the Blue Devils out of California, way back in the 80s. So
When
Yeah.
did you march Florida Wave?
85 to 89.
Oh,
That was
that-
a drum corps based out of South Florida. We were okay. It was a lot of fun. We came in 13th in 87. We missed finals by half a point. I'm still not over it, but that's okay. Never let it go.
Was Bill teaching you guys at that point, or was he?
Bill
had he
Castillo
done?
was a visual instructor my first year in 1985.
Wow.
That's where I met Bill. He was a visual tech for 85 Florida Wave.
absolutely wild.
Yes.
And then you did. When did you? I'm sorry. When did you do Blue Devils?
I aged out in Blue Devils 1990. I did my last year there.
Got it. Okay.
I was 1 year old.
Well, at least you're alive.
I was -7.
Okay.
My older brother had been born. Or no, wait. My older brother hadn't been born yet. He was born 4 months later.
Okay. Well, he was in there somewhere.
Yeah, he showed up.
I was
cool,
1
man.
and destined to be a Power Ranger.
Great.
Destined.
The red one, I would assume.
At first, yeah.
The red one's the best Power Ranger. It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a
legit.
fair argument.
But
Yeah.
well, yeah, man. Well, thanks for being with us. I know when we were talking, I was like, what are some things you can talk about? And the two things that Larry said were, number one, he can just talk about Evan for an hour.
Never.
Is a thing.
Putting words in
And-
my mouth. My good dear friend Evan, I have nothing but the highest respect for.
He's going to be here in 2 weeks, and we're going to do the same thing.
I took the high road. Remind him of that.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, we actually marched
then the
drum
other
corps
one-
together for 2 years. That's how I met Evan. We marched the Florida Wave together for 2 years. We were both
Oh, really?
when we were in high
Very
school.
cool.
Yes.
Is he also from Miami?
He went to high school at North Miami Beach.
Oh wow.
He went to NMB way back in the day.
Okay. And then yeah. Jeez, like I kind of want to get both of you guys on just so you can just poke at each other for
Nah.
like 40 minutes. I think it'd be funny. But then I guess the main topic for today is just, tips from someone who's done this for a long time. For those who don't know, Larry is also about to enter his second stint as district chair for District 14 in FBA.
Yes.
So he's got a lot of experience in both, executing band at a high level with really great students, but also, in terms of leadership and service. And
I thought you were going to say executing band directors. That'd be more fun. That's okay.
Okay.
that's a whole other episode.
That's a whole different podcast. Okay.
And then, I mean, really, have you done have you ever been on any other like FBA committees or anything like that?
I was on not a whole lot of them. Just my summers are usually with drum corps. So I don't have a lot of time in the summer. There was a marching band task force a few years back, and we kind of updated some things. Like the handbook still had like cassette tapes and stuff in there, so we kind of updated things and got that going again. That was like 7 or 8 years ago. I did that for a couple of years when they asked me to. I've been an FBA adjudicator as well. I judge S&E, contraband, jazz band. I've done that. Probably since the early 2000s,
Okay.
off and on.
Yeah. So I mean, you've very well traveled, has been around, knows if there's anybody in South Florida. I feel like, guys, and you can agree with me or not. I mean, we can easily all disagree with him right here, but I feel like Larry probably knows a lot about the FBA. More than a lot of people in South Florida. I know there's a lot of older, like other older dogs like Edgar Rubio and Michelle Fernandez when she's around, and I know Bill's been around forever. But there's a lot of experience that Larry has to offer. What are like the top? Let's start with like the top 5.
Okay.
The top 5 things that you would want, or that you either would want to see from more of the younger generation, or things that irk you, and you're like, this is how to fix it.
Well, I will tell you that the number one most important thing is you have to ask for help. Everybody wants to do everything on their own and wants to be successful, and just understanding that you don't know everything. And you're going to have a lot of failures your first couple of years just because you're getting thrown into the situation. Usually, if you're getting a job right out of college, you're usually not walking into Dreyfus School of the Arts, or walking into, New World School of the Arts, or, an established program, because those jobs don't turn over very much. When you're walking into a program out of college, you're probably walking into one that has had some issues recently because they're getting a new band director. Not always. I mean, I know that Christian, you guys walked into a pretty good situation at your school, but Andrew, obviously, you walked into not the greatest situation. Yeah.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I mean, being the third band director to my 8th graders.
Well, that's also
was,
maybe not. Yeah. So maybe definitely some challenges. So.
Everyone has their challenges.
Yeah, that's the main thing. I was very fortunate. My first year, as I said, I was an assistant to Niels, and he knew everybody and still knows everybody. And then when I did my first gig, I was down at Coral Shores High School in Key Largo. If you know the Keys, it's mile marker 90. The closest high school was an hour away in either direction. When you talk about being by yourself, I was by myself. So it would have been very easy for me just to fail and burn out and flame out after a couple of years. I walked into a band with 20 kids. The middle school band, Mike Fraley was at Key Largo Middle School, and we've talked about this since. His middle school band was better than my high school band, no question. Like, we joke around. No, they were. The 8th grade band at Key Largo Middle School blew my first Coral Shores High School band away. It was kind of embarrassing that I inherited. But I asked a lot of people to come listen to my band. again, come down to the keys, for a couple of days, we'll put you up, whatever. That was an easy selling point. But just ask for help, or I'd make recordings, and give them to people. Yes, back then you had to record like on cassette tapes, and like go to someone's house, say, here's a cassette tape of my band, listen to it, what do you think? A little bit harder to do back then. But just ask for help, ask for people that have success, about everything. I was very, very fortunate, how to do paperwork, how to do a bus request, how to do a purchase order, all these things that, you can get swamped and overwhelmed and lost if you're
They
not
don't teach you about in college. They
No.
don't tell you
There's
about
so much
bus
stuff,
requests
yeah.
or anything like that.
No, and you have to,
Right.
the three most important people at your school are your principal secretary, your head custodian, and whoever makes the schedule. The principal is
And the
obviously
bookkeeper.
important.
And the bookkeeper.
And the bookkeeper, yes, bookkeeper too.
Yeah.
We'll put four. I mean, principal's obviously important, and your department is important. But if you're not in good with those four people, you're going to have a very bad experience, very difficult experience, and you probably won't make it. You're probably going to flame out. So it's so important that these are things that luckily I had people that told me, and I listened to them. And then of course people come in and work my band, listen to my band. I thought, and I've told the story before. My first year at Coral Shores, the band got straight fours the year before in concert MPA. And the school opened in the 50s. I was there in 92. They had gotten one superior in 40 years, like in the 80s sometimes. So my first year there, we got a 2. I was happy. Okay, fine. My second year there, we got straight 1s. We played a grade, I think 2 grade 3s. Went to state. I was like, all right, we're going to state. This is the greatest thing ever. We're going to be fantastic. We're going to revolutionize the world. I got a 4 at state my first year because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But it was good. I learned a lot. And I remember sitting there, and Lewis Jones was the executive director. He was what Neil Jenkins is now. He just came up to me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You'll get better." And he walked away. But those were his words of wisdom for me. But, but it was good.
That was a blessing.
It was.
He actually came and blessed you.
He did.
Sure.
He did. And he also
And
was
now
very
look
helpful
at
to me
you.
too. So I just asked for help, and I see so many young directors that just don't do that. They don't ask for help. And again, no disrespect to anybody. You have your buddies that you graduate college with, and you're all in there. So you're all new directors together. And you definitely want to have a support team, and you want to have people you can go to for sure. But, just all the first year directors helping each other is only going to get you so far because they're all in the same boat. You need someone with experience, or hey, I want to play these songs for MPA. What do you think? No, don't play that. You're crazy. Things like that. And then so it's so important. And I kind of rambled on a little bit here, but the number
that's
one
why you're
thing
here.
I would say is just ask for help. There are so many people that are happy to help you. Now, maybe they can't come to your band room because, we all teach full time. They're all doing all this stuff. But send a recording, especially these days, record your band, send an MP3, whether Audacity or whatever, or just, on your phone, even whatever. And, and we'll give you feedback. And there's so many people that I know will do that because we want everyone to be successful. We want everyone to have good band programs. So that's the first thing I would say is got to ask for help. The second thing I would say, and really it's like 1 and 1A, you got to know what you want your band to sound like. As I said, I judge for MPA, I judge for FBA, I judge a lot of contra bands. So many times you hear bands, they just chase notes and rhythms. You can tell they spend 95% of the time making sure the kids are pressing down the right buttons for the right amount of time. And again, obviously that's very important. You got to play right notes, right rhythms. I'm not saying you don't, but that is just like, that's the beginning of the journey. And there are a lot of young directors, they think that's the end of the journey. They think that's the end process.
Can you maybe share how you figure out how your band's going to sound, or like what you do during your class time and rehearsal time to develop your band sound?
Sure. And again, it's not like I woke up my first year teaching, all right, we're going to sound like Eastman, here we go. That didn't happen.
Well, maybe talk about like your journey on
on
like how you kind of came up with your process that you use now.
Sure.
Yeah.
So again, knowing what you want your band to sound like, and the kids knowing also too, and I'll come to that in a second. It's important that the kids hear the Marine Band, or hear, the Dallas Winds, or the New York Phil, or Chicago, or LS, or whoever you want them to hear. Because if they don't know what they're supposed to sound like, now again, is your 7th grader going to sound like, Phil Smith? Probably not. But at least if they have it in their head what that trumpet's supposed to sound like, they can work towards it and get better at it. Again, so many times I hear bands where you can tell the students and the teacher have no idea what they want their band to sound like. They're just playing notes and rhythms. You know, they might have a generic dynamic change in there every now and then. They might not, but that's all they're chasing. So, you know, for me, it's, you know, and I hate to be cliche, but it's about air. It's airstream. It's breath support, steady air, long tones. You know, we spend a lot of time every rehearsal. We'll do long tones every rehearsal. You know, we talk about vowel shape. You know, the kids have to use the same vowels. You know, everyone talks about playing in tune, which again, very important. You got to play in tune. But you can have kids be perfectly in tune and sound nothing like each other, you know, and sound really bad. So it's not just that. You know, you got to have, you know, the three big ones. These are on the FBA sheet. It's balance, which is matching the volume. It's blend, which is matching, for wind players, it's matching your vowel shape, your tone. And then, of course, playing in tune, intonation.
What vowel shapes do you like?
I like ah. I'm breathed ah.
For all instruments?
Pretty much.
Breathed
ah. You know,
Breathed
sometimes
ah.
O or E, depending on, you know, if it's upper register, lower register, you know, clarinet maybe, and the upper register's not thinking ah, or tuba, you know, playing low pedal B flats, probably not thinking ah. But, you know, 95% of the time, ah is going to get you at least close, you know, with everybody.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And I like Da, and that's an old drum corps thing. That's Donnie Van Doren was a long-time brass instructor for the Garfield Cadets in the 80s, and then Starve Indiana when they started. And his whole philosophy is like breathe Da, and it's kind of, people kind of come out from that. So not that he invented that, but he kind of made it popular, and people associate that with him. And that just works, you know? Because if the kids don't listen to each other and sound the same, your band's never going to sound good. Just never is. You know, so that's the process. We do that every day. We spend, you know, we have it at West Boca. We're on an A-B schedule. So I have my main band classes are every other day for 100 minutes. So we do every day. We'll take, you know, 20 minutes and we'll do fundamentals. We'll do air. We'll do long tones. We'll do tuning exercises, articulation, slurs, chorales. We sing. We'll sight read every day. So we do fundamentals every day, you know. It's not just, you know, there are a lot of bands. Okay, take out your horns, B5 concert scale. Okay, pull out your first song. You know, you're missing a lot of opportunities. And again, every school is different. You might only have your kids 40 minutes, you know, a couple of days a week. Obviously, it's different if that's how you have them, or whatever it is. But you got to do that. And as a director, you got to know what you want your band to sound like. You know, it's not just notes, rhythms. You know, we talked about balance and blend, intention. Here in Florida, if, you know, so many young directors go on the FBA website, pull up the concert band adjudication sheet, or the jazz band adjudication sheet, or the solo ensemble adjudication sheet. Read all the terms on there. Do you talk about those terms with your kids every week? You know, whether on the, you know, whether it's the box that talks about, you know, tone, pitch, balance, blend, like we talked about. The middle box is all the technical stuff, notes, rhythms, you know, precision, starts of notes, ends of notes, play together, all that stuff. And then the far right box is, you know, shape, expression, musicality, style, all that dynamic contrast. Do you work on all those things? And do you work on them all the time? Or is it, oh crap, FBA's in 2 weeks. We got to put all the dynamics in now. You know, if that's how you're doing it, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be and people do it, you know. You're going to be in trouble. So it's got to be organic, and it's got to be from day one. You know, a sixth grade band can play in tune with good tone quality. You know, are they going to sound like a great high school, you know, band of seniors? No, they're not. But you guys know, you can get sixth graders to play in tune with good balance and good blend and good sounds with shape and music and musical direction. Absolutely. And many directors do that, but a lot don't also too. You know, it's just all about, you know, getting through the book. Oh, we got through page 25, check. And that's good, and you got to do that, obviously. And I'm not trying to lessen anything. You got to do everything. That's the hard thing for a young director especially. It's like you're spinning 14 plates all at once, and you can't let any of them drop. And there are days they all drop, and you lose, but hopefully you win more days than you lose. You know, and that's hard for some, because, you know, in college they can only prepare you so much. You know, we all took our woodwind technique class and our brass technique class. And I'll give you a great example. You know, when I was down in the Keys my first couple of years, my clarinet sounded terrible. I'm a brass player. You know, I knew brass, doing drum corps, I knew brass. And I'm reading everything on books, and I'm talking to people. What do I do? And then one day someone said, what kind of mouthpiece are they playing on? I'm like, I don't know. I had no idea that matters. Yeah, that matters. Oh, really? Clarinet mouth is now. I'm like an idiot. Of course it matters, but I didn't know. So the music store. I think it was All County Music back in the day. Brought me like 8 of the old B45 mouthpieces. This is like 30 years ago when the B45 was still the king. Now it's like a doorstop. That's another story. And all of a sudden my clarinet section sounded like 200% better. And then what reeds they playing on? I don't know, because I didn't know. No one told me. But I asked, because if I didn't ask, I'd probably have bad clarinets still to this day. Because how would I have known? So that's kind of go back to the first thing is, talk to people, ask them. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Don't be intimidated or embarrassed. Not everybody. There's some jerks out there, of course. But 95% of the older directors, successful directors, they're going to help you. If you ask them a question or have some stuff, they'll sit down and talk with you, or talk with you on the phone, listen to a recording. Absolutely, they will. So those are the two big things. Ask for help, talk to experienced people that you trust. Have someone that, whether you want to call it a mentor or whatever, someone that you can call that's not going to steer you wrong, that's going to help you out. Say, do this, don't do this, check this, don't check this. And then, of course, know what you want your band to sound like, know what you want your stuff to sound like. And the third one I would say is you have to, and this is hard because we all do this, you have to understand it's a job. It's not your life. We all stay at school till 9 o'clock at night sometimes. I'm as guilty as anybody. But I do it less than I used to because I have a life and I have a family and and not now my kids are getting older, but back when they were younger. You kill yourself for that job. That school will replace you literally in 3 days.
Yep.
And they won't even lose any sleep over it. So you got to take care of yourself. What is it, like 3 to 5 years is the normal burnout for a band director?
I think it used to be 5. I think nowadays it's 3. Yeah,
3 years. Most directors don't make it past 3 years, and it's just because they feel overwhelmed. They're alone. If you're one of 7 math teachers at the school, yeah, it's a hard job, but at least you can commiserate with the other Algebra 1 teacher or the other English, 7th grade English teacher or whatever. Usually you're the only band director. You might be the only music teacher. You might be teaching band and choir or whatever. So you don't even have that. So you have to have a social network. You can just, talk to, laugh, cry, vent, scream, whatever, and not live in your band room till 10 o'clock at night every night. Because you can do that not realizing it, and before you know it, the whole year's gone by, and you've like added 5 years. You've gained 1 year age-wise chronologically, but you've gained 5 years mental health and physical health.
Right.
So many band directors are in really, really bad shape. They either have terrible eating habits. I don't know the divorce rate for band directors. It's got to be high.
It's high.
It is. You guys married other band directors, so either you're smart or dumb. I don't know, but you got to take time and make time. And I'm very fortunate. My wife Randy, she's not a band director, but she did band all throughout high school and college, and still plays every now and then, and so she gets it. But you have to have that support system for school and for work, but also that support system for home. And maybe they're the same people, maybe they're not, and that's okay. Because again,
but you need it.
You have to have it because you'll kill yourself for a year or two. You'll get 4s because you're trying to do everything by yourself, and you don't know what you don't know. I say that a lot to young directors and to student teachers is you don't know what you don't know. You think you know everything, or you think you know, but what you know is only 20% of it, and you have no idea it's only 20% of it. So you get frustrated and you quit. Because the job's too hard, I'm by myself, they're dumping on me, I got to do all these things, and I got a 4. Why am I doing this? It's not worth it for, $35,000 a year or whatever it is, So, yeah. So who wants to be a band director now?
Yay, the Florida Band Podcast. Thank you.
Well, maybe you can actually talk about that. What gets you up in the morning? What's your why?
Yeah.
I still like teaching kids. I wasn't going to be a band director. I was going to be an engineer for a minute. My son's an engineer, so that worked out for him. I was going to be an engineer for like a minute. That didn't take. Then I was going to be a music engineer for about a month. I actually started I went to FIU for a year as music undecided. Got out of there quick. FIU is fine now. Back then, it was very, very different. I was the only trumpet principal in the entire college. That was it, me. Imagine a major university with one trumpet player. Yeah, that was me.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
that's
went to
oof.
Miami as a music engineering student for about a semester. Didn't work out. So then I was music undecided again. And while this was going on, I was teaching marching bands. I made money, tech and marching bands in the fall. And people were like, "Why don't you just be a teacher?" I was like, I don't know. Why don't I just be a teacher? So, I still enjoy doing it. I in the summer, I enjoy teaching drum corps, and I still enjoy teaching the students. And, the last couple of years, no question, have been the hardest. The hardest 3 years of my career have been the last 3 years. In a lot of
Sure.
aspects, this year's harder than last year. The bands are better this year because now we're year 2 back after COVID. But it's been just a lot of, it's a lot of issues this year, and not anybody's fault. I mean, the kids are great. I've got a great administration. Everybody supports me. It's just been tough this year. The COVID, hangover
Yeah.
is real. It is.
That's a whole other
That's a
episode. I
whole
think we
other-
can all
That's more than one podcast.
we could all grab a beer and
Yeah.
grab a beer and talk about that one. That's for sure.
But I'm in a situation where I feel valued at my school. I got good students who, for the most part, want to be there and want to get better. And I still enjoy doing it. So, this is my 32nd year teaching overall, my 25th in Florida, because I taught in the Carolinas for a bit also. So, I think I had about at least 5 or 6 more years left. We'll see after that. But
I mean, Mr. Toothpick was probably really motivating for you, but
that's another story, Mr. Toothpick. The nicest guy. The nicest guy, Mr. Toothpick. Again, the
Sure.
other guys don't know what we're talking about. We'll tell you about that later. It's okay.
Question.
All right.
Question for you, because you were talking. I know. Randy was like always super involved with both the chorus and the band. Now that all your kids are out of there, is she out of that?
Yes.
And just kind of making more time for you guys?
Yes. Yeah. My wife, so I teach at West Boca. We live in Wellington. We live 45 minutes away from my school. That's probably the worst thing about my job. It's a 40 to 45 minute commute every day. In the morning, it's about 40. On the way home, it could, sometimes up to an hour, depending on how traffic is.
Well, then you get to listen to our podcast.
Of course. So we decided when we moved here, when we were in Charlotte, Zach, my oldest, was an 8th grader. He was going to be in my band up there, up at Ardrey Kell, where I was teaching in South Charlotte. We moved here, we moved to Wellington, and we figured out, I didn't know I was going to teach yet, so we moved to Wellington. And then when I got the West Boca job, I was like, do we want our kids to go to high school 45 minutes from our house? And not so much because of the school, because now all their friends live 45 minutes away. So if Zach wants to see his friend on Saturday, I got to drive 45 minutes there to drop him off, drive back 45 minutes, and then 4 hours later pick him up, another hour and a half.
Yep.
So we decided, nah. And then, of course, we're in Wellington, and Wellington High School is a fantastic school. The school itself, the music department is fantastic. So went to Wellington. So my wife and I were Wellington band parents for 10 years. And then my wife became like super uber choir parent. She was like the head choir parent with Brad Chase for like the last 5 years. She was like, choir booster president and kind of did everything for him. But no, I told her once Rebecca graduates, you better not do a damn thing. go be a fan, go support them if they need a little bit of help. And she does. She talks to them, she helps out. But you're not running anything. We're out. So she
There
does.
it is, man.
Yes.
I dig it. When you you talked about a little bit about the former ED. When you were at Coral Shores, and really the only other band director around, I guess, was Mike. Who were the guys or the people that you would go to and bring your analog recordings or just ask
Well,
questions?
again,
Like,
Mike
who's-
Froey was a huge help back then. And we had, I taught at that Coral Shores job. I actually taught at Plantation Key School for 2 hours a day. It's a K-8 school right across the street. The total middle school enrollment was 250 kids. K to 8, 250. That was it.
Wow.
Yeah. So actually, my 4th year there, we had like 60 kids in the band. I actually got an FMEA enrollment award my last year because I had over a quarter of the school in band. 60 kids. But Mike was huge. Jay Paralise, who was at Marathon High School at the time, he's been at Lehigh Acres for like the last 20 years now, over on the West Coast. He was huge. Steve Harris was a good friend of mine. He actually told me about the job at Coral Shores. We went to college together at UM. He's at Northside Christian now, helping out. He taught at Key West High School back in the day, back then. So he was great. Neil Jenkins was great. I would ask anyone that would come down. Mark Humphreys used to come down. Gary Green came down once. I was like, he's like, sure, I'll come down. I was like, wow, okay, great. My little crappy grade 3 band. He had just started at Miami, so he wasn't, he was just kind of, he was new to the area, so probably, but again, very helpful. And just anybody. Anybody that would help. I became quick friends with Steve Rivero way back in the day, and one of my best friends, and we kind of came up together. Listening to each other's bands, working each other's bands, figuring stuff out together with, through each other. And just, Rodester Brandon, back in the day, fantastic band director down in southern Dade County. He was at Homestead High School for many years. Then he was at New World. Just passed away, unfortunately. I think just about a year ago. I think
there's I think
Tony
Womack announced that he's doing a legacy project.
Yes, yeah, we tried to get him on the legacy project and in the FBA Hall of Fame. I've been helping. Womack's been that, and also Willie Pyfrom, which is we're trying to get in as well too. But
yes,
both two very deserving guys. So just basically that, just people that would help, and just reach out to anybody that would listen. Funny story, Bill Miller. What you guys don't know who that is probably. He was like the guy. He was like Mr. FBA. Like the man. Like he wrote books. Like I still have the Bill Miller books somewhere. Like the books on like how to do band. He was the guy. And I met him once and I read all his books and like this is like, oh my God, Mr. FBA. And I was teaching at Miami at the time. This is like 96. I'm like, Mr. Miller, oh my God, I'm such a huge fan. So nice to meet you. My name is Larry Shane. I teach down in Miami Southridge. He looks at me and he says, Dade County has the worst bands in Florida. And he walked away. It's like,
wow.
Thank you, sir. So, but anyways, Nick DeCarbo used to be at UM for a long time. Was very helpful to me. Gus Perry, you probably don't know who that is. Again, a long-time band director in Miami. He opened Southwest High School way back in the day. I think he was at Miami High before that in the 50s and 60s. I could be wrong on that one, but I know he was at Southwest. Was very helpful for me back in the day. So I was just fortunate that people just helped me. I asked. If they said no, then okay, I'm gonna ask someone else. And Neil, of course, Neil Jenkins too, my high school band director, was very, very helpful for me as well too. I can't leave Neil out. He'll get mad at me.
I dig it. I mean, because you talked about like the journey with like when you got fours and then you were just kind of like at state and what are some other really big defining moments in your career or lessons that you learned and like where did you learn them from and like how has that impacted your career?
Yeah, I mean, nothing like revolutionary. Just we all kind of do the job, and after you do it for a few years, you pick up a few things and you pick up a few tips, and you borrow from people. No one's coming up with anything original anymore. You're just borrowing things from everybody, maybe putting your spin on it. And I learned also very, very quickly, you can't try to just be a clone of someone. Like if you come in and watch me conduct, don't be a clone of Larry Shane because it won't work for you. It works for me because I'm me. One of my best friends is Edric Rhodes, who isn't teaching anymore. He's actually works for the Kennedy Center now. But, we also came up together. He's a little younger than I am, so I was there a little bit before him, but, taught in Palm Beach County together for many, many years. We couldn't be more opposite the way we teach, probably about 180 degrees.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah. But... the results are there. So there's more than one way to do it. So don't try to be a copy of me or a copy of Steve Rivero or a copy of Mary Ozer or a copy of Evan Rogovin. Be yourself, but borrow things from people and, and try to make them your own. But that's kind of all I did is kind of learn what works, what didn't. Again, I asked a lot of people as far as rep. That's the hardest thing, learning repertoire. I do that, and now it's even easier now. Back in the day, they had the state resource library. You'd send a cassette to some magic FBA address and say, I want these recordings. There was like a catalog, and they'd send you back.
That still exists.
Yeah, but it doesn't really work anymore.
No?
No. They're going to get mad at me, but it's not right anymore. But anyways, and you'd get a cassette back filled with, Jack Cruz band playing, Lincolnshire Posey or whoever.
Wow.
And that's how you learned. And what I would do now also, and there's nothing for young directors, is go on to MP Online. It's all right there. Look at the state programs of all the bands playing. Whether you're, and for high school, maybe middle school, look at the district programs. What are songs that you see multiple times and you don't know those songs? Man, I saw this song on 4 bands played this song at state. I don't know that song. I need to learn what that song is because it's probably important, or it's probably significant literature if 4 different bands are playing it. What are the grade 2s that the middle school bands that I look up to around the state are playing, or I see these same songs over and over again. Let me check them out. And maybe they're not for you. Maybe you don't like it. You don't have to like everything, but at least know about it. Learning the FBA repertoire and learning what works for which band. That's another thing too. You gotta play stuff that fits your band. Your band's different every year. A lot of times directors, they hear the band in their head. They hear the New York Phil when they conduct Cumberland Cross, or when they conduct Imperium. They hear the New York Phil. I don't know if the New York Phil ever recorded Imperium. They should.
Absolutely.
They don't hear the band
That
in
would
front
be
of them.
epic.
What a baller
They don't
move.
hear
Just record
they don't hear the band in
Imperium.
front of them. And that's a hard thing too. Is you got to know what fits. I love Shostakovich 5, or I love whatever. But if I only have 2 trombone players, maybe I shouldn't play Shostakovich this year. It's probably not going to work, Or I love Pineapple Pole, but I only have 1 clarinet player. That's probably a bad song to pick,
So I'm looking at the resource library because they still have it. You're right. The last time they updated it was 2014.
Yeah. So yeah.
That's such a bummer.
Don't shoot the messenger, FBA police. Don't get mad at me.
Well, yeah, because you have super old recordings from Mike Garassi, and I'm looking at the Terravella recording, and there's
Super old.
5
You said Mike
million
Garassi
of
super
them.
old. Oh, you're making me feel old. That's okay though. Mike Garassi.
Well, Mike Garassi was my band. He was one of my band directors when my first year at UCF, right
Nice.
before he left to go to Texas.
Yes.
But there's a bunch of Terravella recordings, but they're all the most recent one is 2009, I think.
Yeah.
Was this maybe, or no, 2014. He recorded. It was when Julia was there.
Yeah.
They had Amerlon, but that's a bummer because this is actually a really good list. There's a ton of what's her name?
Well, I mean, you can go on YouTube now, and that again, way back in the day, if you wanted a recording, it used to be called Florida Music Service. It was based out of Naples. A guy named Tommy, good guy. So if you had to get a recording of something, you'd reach out to him. Hey, I need a recording of this. Can you find it? And he would find it, and he'd sell it to you. But now everything's on YouTube, so you can hear. So go on these, go on the MP Online, look at what the bands are playing. Go on YouTube and find a recording of it. Or go on JW Pepper and find a recording of it. Check it out, listen to it, look at the score, and learn it and see if it's good. But make sure you got to pick stuff that fits the band that's in front of you, not the band that's in your head.
Something you haven't mentioned, and it was something that you, me, and Bill talked about maybe 70 times this MPA season, was going to listen to live performances
yes.
of. Yeah.
That's the best professional. Again, we're all busy. We're all stressing out concert MPA. And, I've been there too. Sometimes after you get through your concert MPA cycle, the last thing you want to do is go hear more bands. But it's the best professional development. You will learn more. And what I recommend is, and Andrew, we did this together, young directors, sit with an older guy or someone that's a judge and, ask them, what did you hear? What did I hear? What did you hear? And what would you give them? And see if you heard that. And if you didn't, lie and said you did, and write down what they said and figure it out. But you gotta. That's the best professional development. Listen to other bands. Listen to what works, what doesn't. When I became a solo ensemble judge, that made my band so much better, because when I went around the state and saw, oh yeah, I got to tell my kids to do this. Oh yeah, I got to tell my kids to do that. And look at that homage, or look at this and that. It made me go back and check my students. Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? So that's the best professional development. Is seeing other live musicians performing. Successful and maybe not successful. You can learn a lot also what not to do, and again, not to be mean to anybody, but there are some bands where you can learn what doesn't work. But it's just the reality. We want all the bands to be successful. That's the thing about, I tell directors as well too. It's not like football where for me to be successful you have to lose. I have to beat you for me to be successful. In band, it's not that. I want every band to get straight ones. In a perfect world, everybody's getting straight ones at state. Now, we don't live in a perfect world, but because why should a kid have a disservice in music because they live 5
Right.
miles in a different direction than another kid? That's not fair. It shouldn't be based on your address whether you get a good music education or not. And unfortunately, it is sometimes, and that's a whole other podcast.
No, we'll probably bring you back a couple times because these are a lot of really good tangents that like, no, really it's conversations that a lot of people don't necessarily talk about on a public forum without potentially bringing
Right.
risk to somebody else's reputation, which is we're always trying to avoid that.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. It would never want to do that.
I get it.
Sure.
Are there in your experience, who were the people back then that you were like always listening for? Like it's like you get wind of Miami's MPA schedule when you're down in Coral Shores. Like, who are you driving up to go see?
Oh, back in the day, Coral Gables, they were fantastic. That was the band. Miami Southridge. Again, it's a shame also, too. Dade County has such a rich history and tradition of bands. And it's just, again, a whole nother, for a variety of reasons, it's no one's fault. It's just not there now anymore. These schools, Miami Southridge, Miami Palmetto, Killian, Carroll City, Jackson, Edison, Northwestern, who still, they're kind of hanging on. Chad's doing a really good job there, trying to keep it afloat. But like Southridge, I taught at Southridge. We had 200 kids in the band. I think there's like 20 kids now. They have a new band director every 6 months. 'Cause my buddy keeps sending me the job posting is open again. I'm like, I know. It's just, and it's no one's fault. It's a lot of those Dade County bands now don't have feeders. There's so many middle schools in Dade County don't have band programs anymore. Or there's just so many schools. You have there's 50 high schools in Miami now or whatever it is.
Jesus.
Or 6 through 12 schools. So it's just you don't have the student body anymore. But I know back in the day, all the Dade bands and the Taravellas.
Yes, it
Johnny
was.
Leonard was a powerhouse back in the day. Cooper City. Just a lot. You left out that band. Coral Springs when Dwayne Hennon was there, 260 strong. Monster band program.
I dig it.
Way back in the day. So yeah, but it's, I went and listened to bands and made a point of just trying to hear and get better.
I dig it. In terms of, okay, because I'm just curious, because you talked about it. So you would make a recording obviously on a cassette tape or a cassette recorder, and then you're going, because I can't, Christian, AJ, can you fathom AJ, you just going up to Edgar Rubio's house and be like, hey, I have this MP3 for you, please listen to my band, don't throw it in the trash?
Well, I would ask them first. I wouldn't just knock on their door.
Oh, hell no.
Right.
Especially with Edgar. He'd be like, what the hell are you doing at my door, bro?
Yeah. It wasn't a surprise. We talk about, hey, can I record my band? Would you mind listening to it if you can't come down?
Yeah.
Sure, okay, and we just figure it out.
That's wild. Because I know, between Marissa and I think our household talks to you at least once a day. It's just whether it's about Marissa's more on the pedagogical side, whereas I'm just like, hey, I'm trying to send this email and not sound like an asshole.
Yeah.
What do I do? But I think speaking as a quote younger director, Christian and I are I know we're almost in year 10, but
Right, yeah.
it's to the point now where it's when we're coming up, there's so many directors where you would ask for help, and then the idea of being that polite persistence where it's no, hey, I'm still here. Oh yeah, no, 3 years have gone by and I haven't quit. Please kind of talk to me.
Yeah.
Have, it's so interesting being a younger, of the younger generation where, certain band directors are always like, hey man, come out. Hey man, come out. And you're definitely one of those that was if you're able to get it on the schedule, you'll
Right.
come out, or if you're able to get it on the schedule, you'll listen to the recording.
Yeah.
But I think a hang up from a lot of directors sometimes is they're either too shy, or because it's intimidating. Imagine someone coming out of Florida Southern College and they get dropped into Palm Beach County and they don't know anybody, and then they see the confidence that older directors can exude. Sometimes it might be intimidating. What are when you see that situation, what would you say to that director to just try to get over the hump.
Just ask. We have a mentoring. Most districts have a mentoring program where we'll assign a new director with an older veteran director. Some take advantage of it. A lot don't. I've had people, and I'm not going to name any names, where they've said, "No, I'm good. No thanks." I'm like, "Okay, great. Well, if you need me, I'm here," and that's fine. I mean, I'm just a high school band director. I don't know anything. So, but you got to have someone. But just ask people. You have to have those 2 or 3 people that you can confide in, that talk. And hey, is this good? Is this smart? Should I do this? How do I do this? You have to, because you can't just figure it out on your own, especially in this day and age where everything is all immediate. That's the thing also now too, and not to be the old guy yelling at the clouds, but back in the day, I was fortunate when I was in the Keys. I had a couple years. They gave me a couple years to figure things out, and because I was getting better, I was falling upwards basically. I would make mistakes and blow up, but it was still better than the year before. So there was a leeway. Now in this, the information age and this now, everybody has everything at their fingertips instantly. There's more pressure. I have to be good right now. A first-year teacher should not have to play a grade 5 and a grade 6 at state MPA and get ones. And a lot of times I think people put that on themselves, because it is all instant. If I can't figure it out in 5 minutes, I don't want to do it. Is there a YouTube video on how to get a 1 at MPA? If someone could do that and make it positive, you'd make a lot of money on hits, I would say. So that's another thing too. Again, not being the old guy yelling about kids today, but you have to.
No, that's a thing, especially because if you think about it, like your kids' generation, they're the new band directors.
Yeah.
And that's psychologically like a lot of what how they experience it. And it's like, oh well, I didn't get ones on my first year, so why do this? But it's like, but that's not why this is about.
Right.
It's going back to the why that Christian asked you about. Like you gotta just like teaching kids.
You gotta it's a hard enough job. If you don't like what you're doing, it is impossible. You shouldn't do it. The old cliche. Well, I'm trying to become a performer, but if I don't, I'll teach if I don't make it. That never. It works every now and then. Once in a blue moon, it works. But for every one person it works for, like 200, it blows up.
Yeah.
And I won't say names. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I can think of 1 or 2 right now that were going to be performers, and it ended up becoming teachers, and they're fantastic and have taught for a long time. But that's the exception, not the rule. You have to want to do it, and because it's hard enough as it is. If you don't want to do it or you don't enjoy doing it, also, some things are out of your control. You can only control what you can control. Certain things you have no control over it. You're just gonna get frustrated. You also have to be in an environment where they want to have a successful band program. There are some schools, and again, I don't want to name names, but there are some places where they're not set up to be successful. And they don't want to be. I mean, there are places where they're not successful. I mean, when you walked into Coniston, I'm sure it wasn't set up for success, but they worked with you to let you build the band program.
Yes,
and you did. However you want to define success, you got a ton of kids now, because they let you do that. There are some places where they won't let them do that. And at that point, it's like, okay, is it worth it? I'm killing myself, and they don't want me to grow, and they don't want the band to get any better, and they don't want support to let us get better. And you can't win every battle, obviously, but you got to win a couple battles. If you lose every battle, you can't be at that school anymore, and that's a shame. Administrators come and go, principals come and go. A lot of times you just got to wait them out, but sometimes it's hard.
Sure. Christian, AJ, any other probing questions or anything crazy?
Let me see. How do you assess students?
How do I set? What do you mean, like just how they play?
Yeah, how do you assess your students? How do you audition your students? Things like that.
Okay, well we do. For ninth graders coming in, I don't make anybody audition because a long time ago that would just scare kids away. If some band director makes every ninth grader audition, and that's fine. That always just kids would freak out. So no one has to audition. If they want to be in a higher band, they'll audition for me in June. And the same thing with my kids. If they want to move up to a higher band, we do playing tests all year, where I do. Every 2 to 3 weeks, we'll assign a playing test. It might be a scale. It might be from A to B in the music. It might be this technique thing we're doing, this articulation exercise we're doing. So in a 9 weeks period, I'll hear them play, 3 or 4 times, 30 seconds at a time or 45 seconds at a time. Is it perfect? No, but at least it gives me a chance to hear them. because you can't listen to 150 kids every week on their, that's all you would do. You would never rehearse your band. Just listen to kids all day, you know. So we do that, and just try to hear them. Always offer help if you need help. Come listen, come play for me. I'm very fortunate. I believe in empowering student leaders. Where I have a lot of my seniors, section leaders and stuff, work with the younger kids. We quote unquote make them. That's part of your job as section leader. You got to do this section. You got to work with these kids. That's part of the gig, and that's cool because that empowers them, and they feel like they have an ownership in the band and an ownership to help the people in their section get better. And then the kids get better because they're working with older kids, and then they're happy because they get to meet a senior and talk to a senior and have them help them. So it's a good thing. And I've been doing that for a long time, and that works very, very well.
Do you mandate S&E? I don't remember.
At my school, and I've gone back and forth, but for the last 20 plus years, I will tell you, and this is another thing. If you listen to nothing else I tell you as this whole podcast, solo and ensemble is the number one thing that month. The month of our solo ensemble is always beginning of February. When we get back from winter break, the beginning of January, the beginning of February, my students make the most growth all year combined that 1 month, and I have very little to do with it. And that was a little humbling at first. I work with them a little bit, but that month for those kids when they're working on their solo, they're working on their ensembles, they make more gains and more improvement than the other 11 months combined. So I am a 10 billion% supporter of solo and ensemble. Get your kids to do it. Whatever works. Some schools, they'll just do a bunch of ensembles because it's easier that way. They'll have all their kids make up quintettes. Or I'll look at, Craig Denny, who's at Lockers Roy Middle School. He takes from his top band, he takes his top 5 brass players and his top 5 woodwind players and does a quintet with them. Like the select, quintet, or honors quintet, whatever. And then everybody else, he puts in choirs and large ensembles for all his bands. And it works great. For me, I make, in our top band, they have to do a solo. In my second band, they're encouraged to do a solo, but they have to do something. They can do a duet, a trio, a quartet, at least one. Many of them do more than one. Because once they do it once, they get hooked. And then my third band, we do brass choir, woodwind choir. And we just make the brass section is the brass choir, the woodwind section is the woodwind choir. And we do that. And it works well. So 1 billion% do S&E, and if you're not sure, it could be a hassle, whatever, piano players, all that stuff. Another thing, if you can't find piano players, do more ensembles. But your kids will make the most growth that month, and it has almost nothing to do with you. It has to do with them, because they practice. Do your kids practice the other months of the year? Okay, sure they do, maybe. But they want to do well at S&E. They want that superior or that excellent, so they're going to practice a lot. Most of them. Do some kids blow it off? Of course they do. But by and large, 90% plus of my kids take it seriously, and they work their butts off, and they do well. So, and that's been a huge, boon to my program as well too. How we get better and are able to play higher level literature because they challenge themselves. They're challenging themselves in their S&E literature, which then translate to the band literature. So yes. So the short version is yes.
All right. Well, I think I have a question.
Okay.
Going to high school at West Broward, doing the whole marching band thing there, doing 2 seasons in drum corps, knowing that
let me just as a tangent. I'm going to put a tangent here. At least, and I love Dean Coleman and those guys, at least twice a year, we're called West Broward and they're called West Broward. You said West Broward. I thought you meant my school and were saying it wrong.
Yeah.
Because that happens a couple of times a year, guaranteed. We might be at a percussion show,
right.
Wherever we're at. It always happens. So I digress.
And I work with Jed Davis at my school, so he told me, I work with Jed, and he told me that at one of the competitions that you guys were called West Broward.
Oh, they announced it. Yeah. Always, once or twice a year, guaranteed, we're called West Broward. And they're called West Boca probably once or twice a year. So,
yeah.
Good times. Anyway, go ahead, sorry.
But I was curious, being that, I've heard that, you don't do too much marching band at your school, knowing how involved you are with Crown and, your history with marching. And I'm just curious about, the decisions that you make for your program when it comes to marching band.
Sure, and that's a great question. And every school is different. I've been in schools where we are gung-ho competitive. When I was at Leonard, we were very competitive in the state of Florida. We did BOA regionals. We competed a lot. FMBC was just starting, so we didn't do that much. But we were very competitive marching band in the season. When I was at Southridge, we were more of an FBA style band. We would go to a competition or two, but it was all about, getting ready for MPA, and doing that, which is, a little bit different. Not as much movement, not as much in the drill design or as much of velocity in the drill, because you don't need that for FBA. As long as you move well and you play well, you're going to be fine. And the school I'm at now, West Boca, when I got there, Edric, who was there before me, Edric Rhodes, he pretty much got rid of the competitive marching band. West Boca opened with a very competitive marching band, like ultra competitive. And it ended up being like, it kind of started to implode the band program. And the guard program there, especially. The guard program pretty much disintegrated. So he made the choice to step away from that and go to more of a pep band route. So I'm at West Boca now. We're kind of unique, is where we have like a 160-piece pep band. We probably have one of the largest pep bands in the country. We do quote unquote have a marching band. We do a pregame. We make a tunnel the team runs through. We do a halftime show. It's 2 pages of drill. It's been the same 2 pages of drill for 11 years.
Nice.
1 page during band camp. I don't want to rush it. We pace ourselves. We do a little 4-day band camp where we learn half the show. We learn 1 page.
Sweet.
And then we learn the other half later. So we take our time. But we learn about 15 or 16 stance tunes, and we play modern stuff. We let the kids pick 3 or 4 songs on the radio right now or recent, and we'll get them arranged for us. And we have some favorites we play also too. And we're very much like a college pep band at the stands. So I've been on all sides. I've been ultra competitive, and I've been in the middle, and now I'm where I'm at now. And it depends on your school. Like if I went tomorrow and said, all right, West Boca, we're going to go back. The bug hit me. We're all in. We're going to be a very competitive pep band, marching band rather, FMBC, BOA. We're all in. We're all in. We're all in. I'm guessing about 100 kids would quit immediately.
Yeah.
The kids at my school, that's not, would I have a nucleus? Sure I would. And I'd have a really, really good nucleus, but I would probably lose 2 concert bands overnight, because that's not that's not an important thing at our school. And at my school, the kids do a lot of stuff. Our marching band, we practice 1 day a week for 2 hours, and they complain, oh, it's too hard, it's too much time. And I just laugh. I said, you're right, it is. It's hot outside. You better go sit down. It's too hot outside. We're outside an hour of those 2 hours. So we're outside an hour a week, and people go, oh, it's too hot. It's just too hard. You're right. Go sit down. You need a rest. They have no idea.
Yeah.
But they don't care. They don't need to know. Just
right.
So you got to do what's best for your situation. I would never ever demean a program, because you're the band director. You know what's best for your program. Now I will say this. I was always a believer, even when I was competing hardcore up in Charlotte and when I was at Leonard, we did concert music during the day. If you need to spend 3 months learning 8 minutes of music during the day, your show's probably too hard, or you're doing something wrong. You shouldn't need 3 months to learn 8 minutes of music.
Right.
That's a whole other podcast.
There's another one.
So even when I was ultra competitive, we would play concert music during the day, and then maybe on game days we'd run the show. All right, Friday, half of the period, grab your mellophones, grab your sousaphone, let's run the show and maybe hit a stance tune. But that was it. And it was all after school.
I'm sure that makes things easier for you to go in the summer and not have to worry about too much happening at your school while you're with Crown or on tour.
We do a band camp. As I said, we do a 2-week band camp. We do 1 week end of July, and then we do right before school starts. We do a little percussion camp as well. But yeah, it's not nearly as intense as what I used to do, at other schools. And again, there's no right or wrong. What works at West Broward, they've been doing it for a while, and it works for them, and they've got a good band program. You look at someone like Steve Rivera at Douglas. Very, very competitive marching band since he's been there, probably more so than it was before him. But the concert program is still very, very, very strong, and the guard and percussion as well too. So, there's no right or wrong way. You just got to do what's healthy for your program. Now, what I would say you can't do is go all on a marching band at the expense of the rest of your program.
Yeah.
Where you blow all your budget in the first 2 or 3 months, and then you try to play 2 grade 2s because you have to reclassify because you haven't taught your kids how to play music or read it all.
Right.
And you get crushed at MPA because you don't know your concert band doesn't exist. You learn how to play in concert band. You're not sight reading in marching band. Well, maybe you are, and if you are, that's a whole other problem. Your kids never learn the music. That's a whole other story. So you learn One other pet peeve I will say this as well too, and this is the last one. Every marching band for the most part has a technique program. They'll watch, what does Carolina Crown do? I'll give a shout out. Matt Harloff's got a great series. It's called Inside the Circle. Buy it if you want to know how does Crown do what they do, warm-ups and technique program. And I use a lot of that with my wind ensemble, my Sylvani band too. Buy that. It's called Inside the Circle. You can find it online, Matt Harloff. Or they'll do the Blue Devils, John Meehan has one, or whoever. They have, they'll do their slurs and articulation stuff. They'll do their warm-ups and their technique. And then they stop doing it in November when marching season's over. You need it the most during concert season.
Yep.
Right.
Why don't you keep doing technique and fundamentals with your concert band? That's when you need it the most. It always drives me crazy why they do that. It's like, it's just because no one told them, because that's what you do in marching band. No, it's not. That's what you do to be good musicians.
Yeah.
If anything, do it more in the concert season. Anyways, yes.
Sure. Anything else, guys? This has been a really cool episode. My favorite part about this episode is because you'll have those podcasts where we have recurring guests. I think Larry's we're probably going to bring you back because there's so many good tangents to dive into.
Let's come on. I'll go on with Evan once. That'll be fun. Me and Evan together.
That'll be super fun. Anything
And
else,
again,
guys?
for the record, I'm going to say it one more time. Evan Rogovan is a master teacher.
Yes.
And a fantastic band director.
Yes.
And I would never, ever, ever have a disparaging word about him or his career or anything else that he does. He is my brother from back in the day.
Yes.
So write that down and tell him, because he's going to come in here and probably make fun of me, but I took the high road.
Well, we'll tell him. I thought you said that. Didn't you tell him that you were gonna you kind of hit him up already, and we're like, ha ha ha.
Yeah, I told him to come on and make fun of him for 45 minutes. That's what I told him to do. But I did not.
No, you
I
didn't.
would never do that.
No.
To my dear friend, Mr. Rogovan.
Oh my God. Whew. Well, this has been a really, really cool episode. Christian, AJ,
Yes.
anything else?
I think we're pretty.
I'm all
Yeah.
set. I think that was very informative.
Well, I appreciate it,
and fun.
guys.
Yeah, thank you, Larry.
Hopefully, and again, anybody out there in the 4 people who listen to your podcast. Hi, just kidding.
Good one.
Good one, I know. If you ever need me for anything, reach out to me. You can find me on, Facebook, because I'm old. I don't have Snapchat or TikTok, so don't bother trying to find me there. I have an Instagram, but I go on I post my running stuff on Instagram. That's it. So
That's literally
all you see is
it.
running pictures. That's it.
That's it.
So if you want me, reach out on Facebook. Happy to help anybody out there. Always happy to lend a hand to young and old directors.
Congratulations on your first place in your running, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah,
I ran.
saw that.
I started running during COVID. COVID happened. We went home. I ate everything in my house the first week, and I said, I'm going to gain 5,000 pounds. I have to do something. So I found one of those couch, and I never ran ever. I found one of those Couch to 5K programs that was free, and I started running, and I've been running ever since March 2020. And yesterday, for the first time ever, I won my age division, the 5K, and I'm very fortunate because I was in the 50 to 59-year-old division. There was a 72-year-old guy that beat me by 3 minutes.
Damn.
Killed me. But not my division, so I still won. 72.
You're the 3A
six-pack abs.
3A
This guy
champion.
would beat all of us up. He had a 6-pack. Oh my God, that dude. He would have killed all of us.
Christ.
But not in my division, so it didn't count.
All right. Well, congratulations on your championships and congratulations on your running trophy. This has been the Florida Band Podcast. We will see y'all next time.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See ya.